In the heart of the village, under the shade of the great baobab tree, the air grew tense. The old chief, revered by all, lay motionless on the ground. His final breath came in the midst of an ancient prophecy, one that had haunted their ancestors for generations. The elders gathered around, their faces drawn with sorrow. "The curse has awakened," murmured one elder, his voice trembling with fear. The young warrior, Kofi, watched in stunned silence, his heart pounding with uncertainty. He had always been told that the elder's death would signal a great shift. Little did he know, this was no ordinary death. It was the beginning of a journey that would change his fate forever. The village, which had once thrived under the elder's wise rule, now stood on the precipice of a powerful transformation, one that Kofi would be at the center of. But was he ready? Would he embrace his heritage, or would he succumb to the pressures of a world rapidly changing? As the elders whispered among themselves, Kofi's mind raced. His connection to the elder had always been one of respect, but now that respect had turned into something deeper, something ominous. His family, long considered outcasts, might be the only ones capable of facing what was to come. But he wasn't prepared for the truth about his heritage, nor the dangers that the curse held. This death had set a chain of events into motion, and Kofi could no longer turn away. The serpent's blessing would either be his salvation or his doom. And with it, the curse would follow. The village elder, Ayadela, stood tall in front of the villagers, her wise eyes scanning the crowd. She was the oldest elder, her wrinkled face a map of ancestral knowledge. And today, she carried a heavy burden. "The death of Chief Olumide has awakened what was once sealed," she said, her voice steady but filled with the weight of the prophecy. "The curse that has haunted this bloodline for centuries is now upon us." Kofi stood among the villagers, feeling a knot tighten in his chest. He had always known there was something unique about his family, but to hear the words spoken aloud felt like a dagger to his heart. He had spent his whole life in the shadow of his ancestors, and now it seemed he was destined to walk the same dark path. "The serpent's blessing," Iodel continued, her voice echoing through the gathering, "is both a gift and a curse. It will grant eternal life, but at a terrible cost. The hero among us, the one chosen by the spirits, must face it." Kofi's heart raced. Could it be that he was the one they spoke of? The villagers turned their eyes to him, their faces filled with expectation and fear. He stood frozen, unsure if he was ready to accept the curse that was calling his name. Kofi could feel the weight of the village's gaze upon him. The words of the elder echoed in his mind, but his heart remained clouded with doubt. The villagers spoke of him as the chosen one, but he felt neither special nor prepared for the task ahead. His thoughts wandered back to his childhood, to the stories his mother had whispered to him at night about the serpent's blessing and the tragic fate of those who had borne it. It had always been a myth, a tale to frighten children, not a reality. But now, it was as real as the earth beneath his feet. "Why me?" Kofi whispered to himself, barely audible. "I am not the hero they seek." His hands trembled as he clenched his fists, trying to steady his nerves. The burden of immortality weighed heavily on his soul. Could he live forever and still maintain his humanity? Would he watch everyone around him age and die while he remained untouched by time? The thought seemed unbearable. Yet, the path was set before him, and there was no turning back. His destiny, woven into the fabric of his ancestors' blood, had arrived. And with it, the curse. Later that evening, as the village settled into the calm of twilight, Kofi found himself at the doorstep of the elder's hut. The mentor, Oba, an elder man in his 80s, had lived through the rise and fall of many rulers, seen the birth of empires, and the destruction of countless villages. His deep-set eyes, clouded with years of wisdom, never failed to see beyond the surface. Oba had been the chief's trusted advisor, and now seemed to be the only one who could guide Kofi through the storm that loomed on the horizon. "Kofi," the elder spoke softly, his voice rich with experience, "the serpent's blessing is not given lightly. It chooses its bearer not for strength, but for the heart that lies within." Kofi, still unsure of his path, looked into Oba's eyes and saw the weight of countless lifetimes reflected there. You must embrace your bloodline, Kofi. Only then will you find the strength to carry this curse and make it your own. The words were simple, but they resonated deep within Kofi's soul. He understood now that the curse was not an external force, but something that existed within him, a part of his very being. The following morning, as the sun began to rise, a soft wind swept through the village. Kofi stood alone at the edge of the village, looking out over the vast land that stretched beyond. The air was thick with the scent of earth and rain, and the quiet rustle of leaves whispered the words of the ancestors. Kofi could feel a presence behind him, one that he could not see, but knew was there. It was as though the very earth beneath his feet was calling to him, urging him to take his place in the world. He closed his eyes, letting the wind touch his face, and in that moment he heard the voice of his ancestors, faint but clear. "It is time, Kofi. You are the one." His heart raced as the weight of his destiny settled upon his shoulders. The curse was no longer a shadow. It was a calling. A path laid before him, one he could not refuse, no matter how uncertain the journey ahead seemed. Kofi, now burdened with the curse, set off on a journey with his loyal protector, Kwame. The path was unknown, but they sought answers from the oracle, the only one who could reveal the truth about the curse. "We fight for our future," Kofi said, determination in his voice. "No matter the cost." The journey was long, and Kofi felt the weight of his bloodline's burden pressing harder with each step. But he knew there was no turning back. The curse would either destroy them, or they would destroy it. As they neared the oracle, they encountered their first trial. A massive beast, twisted by the curse, emerged from the shadows. The creature was a formidable opponent, but Kofi and Kwame fought valiantly. The battle was fierce, with Kofi's strength slowly diminishing under the curse's weight. However, together they defeated the creature. "This is only the beginning," Kwame said, breathless. Kofi nodded, feeling the truth of the words. After the battle, Kofi heard a familiar voice. Adissa, his cousin turned traitor. "The curse is too strong," Adissa said, his dark eyes filled with malice. "You should have joined me." Kofi's heart sank. His cousin was now aligned with dark forces, and the battle was no longer just against the curse. It was now personal. "You have chosen your side," Kofi said, drawing his sword. "But I will not let you destroy my people." Adissa's words lingered in Kofi's mind as he continued on his journey. "The curse is not something to be fought," Adissa had said. "It's something to be controlled." Kofi realized the full depth of the betrayal. Adissa had sought power, and now his people were caught in the struggle between loyalty and corruption. "I will stop you, Adissa," Kofi muttered to himself. "The curse may be part of me, but it will not control me." As Kofi and Kwame approached the oracle, Kofi could feel the curse growing stronger. It wasn't just an external force. It was inside him, twisting his thoughts and actions. "This curse is not just a burden, it's a part of me," Kofi said quietly. The oracle, a mystical figure who had been waiting for them, greeted them with an ancient prophecy. "To break the curse, you must first accept it, not fight it," the oracle spoke. Kofi's eyes widened. The true path was not in destruction, but in understanding. Kofi returned to the village to find it divided. The younger generation, led by Adissa, rejected the old ways, calling them burdensome. "We need progress, not superstition," Jide, a young villager, argued. Kofi, feeling the weight of his heritage, countered, "The old ways are the strength of our people. Without them we lose ourselves." But the tension was clear, there was no turning back. The village was now at war with itself. The argument grew heated. "We cannot cling to the past," Jide shouted. "The curse has kept us in chains." Kofi's voice shook with emotion. "The curse is not the problem, it's part of us." In a moment of anger, Kofi struck a nearby stone with his sword, splitting it. Silence fell. Kofi's frustration with his people's division was clear, but so was the deep divide between tradition and change. That night, Kofi sought wisdom from Oba, his mentor. "The curse is not our enemy," Oba said. "It is our strength. You must learn to balance both worlds, your heritage and the future. Kofi's heart was heavy with doubt, but Oba's calm words reminded him that the true battle was within. You must lead them, not fight them, Oba advised. Kofi soon learned that Tund, one of his closest friends, had joined Adisa's side. The curse is a prison, Tund told Kofi, his face hard with resolve. I can no longer live in fear. Kofi's heart broke as he realized that the betrayal was not just from Adisa, but from those closest to him. I will stop you, Tundan, Kofi whispered, his resolve growing. Kofi's journey took a devastating turn when Tund fully aligned with Adisa's forces. I had hoped for better, Tund, Kofi said quietly. But you've chosen your path. The loss was personal, and the village's struggle now felt even more urgent. The rift between the old and new ways had claimed not only Tund, but a piece of Kofi's soul. Kofi's journey had brought him to the edge of a vast mist-covered river that snaked through a dense jungle. Here, he would face the serpent spirit, an ancient being that had long remained a mystery to his people. The tales spoke of a massive divine serpent that was the guardian of life and death, a being both revered and feared. As Kofi and Quame approached the river, the air grew thick with magic. The mist parted suddenly, and the water churned violently. From the depths, a massive serpentine form emerged, its scales shimmering like liquid gold. Its eyes were like twin orbs of flame, glowing with ancient power. The serpent's voice, deep and resonant, echoed through the trees. Kofi, it said, its tone both commanding and seductive. You have come seeking answers, but I offer you more than that. I offer you immortality, eternal life free from the shackles of time and death. All I ask in return is your soul, your humanity. Kofi's heart raced, his mind torn. The curse that had been placed upon his bloodline was now within his grasp to break, but at such a high price. What is the cost? Kofi asked, his voice barely a whisper. The serpent's laughter rumbled like thunder. Everything, Kofi, everything. The serpent's offer hung in the air like an irresistible perfume, sweet and dangerous. Imagine it, the serpent continued, its voice hypnotic. An eternity of knowledge, power, and life. You would never again see your people suffer the ravages of time. You would never feel the pain of loss, of death. You could live to see your village flourish, its legacy unbroken. Kofi felt a pull in his chest, a temptation to say yes. The weight of his ancestors' curse, the pain of losing his family, the responsibility of his bloodline, it all seemed like too much. The serpent's offer seemed so easy, so perfect. But as he gazed into the serpent's fiery eyes, something deep within him resisted. And what happens to me? Kofi asked, his voice trembling slightly. What becomes of me, if I accept this gift? The serpent's eyes gleamed even brighter. You will remain as you are, Kofi. A hero, a legend. No one will remember your struggles or your pain. You will be immortal. But your soul will be mine. Kofi's heart thudded in his chest. The curse had always been a force of pain and loss. But could this offer truly be the salvation he sought, or would it strip him of everything that made him human? Kofi could feel the weight of the serpent's gaze, the temptation growing stronger by the second. But just as he felt himself being pulled closer, a voice echoed through his mind. It was Oba's voice, faint but clear. Do not give in, Kofi, the elder's voice warned. The serpent's offer is a trap. The curse is not something to be rid of through shortcuts. It is part of your lineage, your spirit. To forsake it would be to forsake who you are. Kofi's hand trembled as he held his sword, the weight of his mentor's words grounding him. But I cannot bear to watch my people suffer, Kofi whispered, his voice breaking. The serpent promises me a way to end the curse, to free us all. The path to freedom lies within yourself, Kofi. Oba's voice replied, growing fainter. Trust in your heart, in the legacy of your ancestors. That is the true power that you must wield. Kofi closed his eyes, his breath shallow, the serpent's voice still echoing in his mind. The offer was tempting, but Oba's words cut through the fog. The true path forward, the one that would save him and his people, was not found in immortality. It was found in facing the curse, not running from it. Kofi stood in silence for what felt like an eternity, the serpent's offer lingering in the air like a poison. His thoughts raced, torn between the promise of power and the wisdom of Oba's teachings. The serpent's words echoed in his mind, tempting him with visions of endless life and an unbroken future for his people. But at the same time, the quiet voice of his mentor resonated in his soul, reminding him of his true purpose. "I reject your offer," Kofi said finally, his voice strong and unwavering. The serpent's fiery eyes flickered with surprise, but then its massive body uncoiled, its form rippling with ancient energy. "So be it," it hissed, its voice now a cold, malevolent whisper. "But know this, Kofi, the curse will never leave you. It will only grow stronger. There will be no escape." Kofi stood tall, his sword still gripped firmly in his hand. "I will face it," he said. "I will face my destiny, and the curse, no matter the cost." The serpent's body sank back into the river, its eyes dimming. The mist cleared, and the jungle once again fell silent. Kofi had made his choice. The journey ahead would not be easy, but it was his to walk. As the serpent disappeared into the river, Kofi's heart was still pounding in his chest. The weight of his decision hung heavily on him, but a sense of clarity began to settle in. He had refused the serpent's temptation, choosing to face the curse head-on. But deep within him, a nagging thought gnawed at him. Had he made the right choice? "The serpent warned me," Kofi whispered, almost to himself. "It said the curse would grow stronger." Kwani, noticing the unease in his friend's voice, placed a reassuring hand on Kofi's shoulder. "Whatever the curse may bring, Kofi, we face it together," Kwam said firmly. "You made the right choice. The path ahead will be difficult, but you have the strength to see it through." Kofi nodded, though doubt still lingered. He knew that the road ahead would be filled with unimaginable challenges, but now, more than ever, he was certain of one thing: he would not face them alone. Kofi's rejection of the serpent's offer came with a heavy price, though he hadn't realized it at first. Over the coming days, he began to notice subtle changes within himself. His skin, once smooth and youthful, began to show faint signs of aging. At first it was nothing more than a light wrinkle here or a gray strand of hair there. But with each passing day, the signs grew more prominent. He was changing, but not in the way he expected. "Curse," Kofi muttered one evening, staring into the fire. "It's not gone, is it?" Kwam, his loyal protector, looked at him with concern. "You rejected the serpent's offer," Kwam said, his voice quiet, yet firm. "But the curse has always been a part of you, Kofi. It is in your blood, your very soul. And now, it is beginning to claim its toll." Kofi's heart sank as he realized the full scope of what he had chosen. He had not escaped the curse, but he had only delayed its inevitable grasp. As the days went on, the signs became more evident. His joints stiffened, his energy waned, and his once quick reflexes began to dull. The curse was claiming him slowly but surely. Kofi looked at the village in the distance, knowing that whatever happened next he would need to face it head-on. His destiny was tied to the curse, and now, he would pay the price. The days following Kofi's realization were filled with inner turmoil, but little did he know that a greater danger was lurking. One morning, while he was preparing for another journey to seek a way to rid himself of the curse, a familiar figure emerged from the shadows. It was Tund, the young warrior who had once been his close friend, now turned adversary. "Kofi, you cannot run from this any longer," Tunde said, his voice laced with bitterness. His dark brown skin was still young, but there was a hardness to his features that hadn't been there before. "Adisa was right. The curse is too powerful. It will consume you." Tunde stepped forward, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. "I have joined Adisa's cause because I see the truth. The curse is a burden, not a blessing. We can't keep fighting it." Kofi's chest tightened as the realization hit him like a blow. "You betrayed us, Tunde," Kofi said quietly, though his voice was filled with pain. "You betrayed everything we fought for." Tunde looked at him, his expression a mix of guilt and anger. "I did what I had to do. You'll understand soon enough. The curse is not something we can escape. It will take us all." With those words, Tund turned and walked away, leaving Kofi standing alone, his heart heavy with betrayal. As Kofi struggled with the weight of the curse, a new, more immediate danger approached. Addis's forces, bolstered by Tunda's betrayal, had begun to encircle the village. Their goal was simple: to break Kofi, to claim the power of the curse for themselves. Kofi and Kwam prepared for battle, knowing that this confrontation would be different from any they had faced before. But as they readied themselves, the true cost of their journey became clear. Kwame, ever loyal, stood by Kofi's side, his face determined. "We fight together, Kofi," Kwam said, his voice full of resolve. "No matter what happens, we stand strong." The battle began in the early morning hours, and as the forces of Adisa clashed with the defenders of the village, the sky darkened. Kofi fought valiantly, but he could feel the curse draining his strength. He stumbled as his limbs grew heavy, and just as Adisa's forces pressed in on him, Kwam stepped forward, blocking the path. "Get to safety, Kofi," Kwam commanded, his voice filled with fierce protectiveness. But Kofi refused. "We fight together," he said, but Kwam shook his head. "You must live, Kofi. You are the future. I will hold them off." With those words, Kwam charged into the fray, his axe raised high. The battle raged around them, but it was clear that Kwam had made the ultimate sacrifice. Kofi, heartbroken and filled with guilt, knew that the cost of his journey had just become too high. The battle was over, and the village lay in ruins. Kofi stood at the edge of the destroyed village, his heart heavy with loss. The weight of the curse was no longer just physical, it had become spiritual, a constant reminder of what he had lost and what he had yet to lose. The serpent had warned him that the curse would grow stronger, but he hadn't known how deeply it would take root. "Kwame," Kofi whispered, his voice breaking. His protector, his brother in arms, was gone, and Kofi could no longer deny the depth of the sacrifice. "I failed him," Kofi thought bitterly. "I failed us all." But as he stood in the quiet aftermath, Kofi realized something. The curse had been powerful, yes, but it had never been the true enemy. The true enemy was his inability to accept the loss, to fight through the grief. He had to move forward, not just for the village, but for his own soul. "I will carry this," Kofi said to the wind, his voice filled with newfound strength. "I will carry it all, and I will honor the legacy of those who have fallen." With that resolve, Kofi began to walk away from the battlefield, the weight of the curse still heavy on his shoulders. But now, there was a glimmer of hope. In the days that followed, Kofi realized the curse had taken on a new form. It no longer just drained him physically, it now corrupted his very soul. He could feel the darkness creeping inside, twisting his thoughts, his desires. His connection to the village, to his people, began to fray. Every person he encountered seemed to age before his eyes, their faces becoming blurred with the passage of time. "This is what I have become," Kofi thought, as he looked into a pool of water, his reflection now that of an older man. The curse had taken hold, and it was only a matter of time before it consumed him entirely. But in the depths of despair, a voice echoed through his mind once more. It was the voice of Oba, faint but clear. "You have not failed, Kofi. This curse, though powerful, can be broken, not by fighting it, but by accepting it. Only by embracing your humanity can you find freedom." Kofi's heart swelled with realization. It was not immortality he sought, but acceptance of the life he had been given, and the strength to live it to its fullest. He had to face the curse head-on, not as an enemy, but as part of his journey. Kofi stood at the entrance of the ancient temple, the sacred site where the spirits of his ancestors were said to dwell. The journey to this place had been long and filled with hardship. But Kofi had come to realize that it was the final step in understanding the curse and the path that awaited him. As he entered the temple, a strange sense of reverence washed over him. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and the walls were etched with symbols of his people's history. In the center of the chamber, an altar stood, and on it lay an ancient scroll, yellowed with age. As Kofi approached it, a deep voice filled the air, resonating with the power of the spirits. "Kofi," the voice said, both familiar and strange, "you have come to seek the truth. But the truth has always been with you. Kofi's heart raced as he turned to see an ethereal figure step out of the shadows. It was his mother, Amina, who had passed away when he was just a child. "Mother? Mother," Kofi whispered, disbelief filling his voice. "You are the descendant of a great king, Kofi," Amina said softly, her form shimmering like mist. "The curse is not just a burden. It is a test. You must pass this test to claim your true inheritance." Kofi's world spun. His mother, the woman he had thought lost forever, stood before him, guiding him to the truth of his bloodline. The curse was not a punishment, it was a legacy, a responsibility that he had yet to understand fully. But the revelation was only beginning. The voice of Amina echoed in Kofi's mind, urging him to look beyond the veil of the curse. "The true enemy has always been within your bloodline," she said, her voice growing clearer. "It is not the serpent or Adisa that you must defeat, but the darkness that has corrupted your own ancestors." The air around Kofi shifted, and suddenly, the ground beneath his feet trembled. The walls of the temple began to crack, revealing a hidden chamber deep within. As Kofi stepped into the chamber, a chilling figure appeared before him. An ancient king whose features were eerily similar to his own. His skin was a deep, rich brown, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "I am the king who made the pact with the serpent," the figure intoned. "I gave my soul for power, and in doing so I cursed my bloodline." Kofi's heart sank as he realized the truth. The curse had not been placed upon his people by an external force. It had been passed down by his own ancestor, the king who had made the pact with the serpent in exchange for immortality. This king had sold his soul, and now Kofi was bound to that same fate. The true battle lay not in defeating Adisa, but in breaking the pact his ancestor had made, a pact that had cursed his bloodline for generations. As Kofi stood before the figure of the ancient king, a voice, faint but clear, echoed in his mind. It was the voice of Oba, his mentor. "The prophecy has been passed down for generations, Kofi," Oba's voice said. "You are the one who will break the curse, but only if you understand your true inheritance." The ancient king's eyes glowed even brighter as he spoke, his voice now filled with malice. "The prophecy foretold that a descendant of mine would one day rise to break the pact I made with the serpent, but they will not succeed unless they first face the darkness within themselves." Kofi's heart pounded as the realization struck him. He had been chosen, not just by fate, but by his own bloodline. To break the curse, he would have to confront the darkness within his own heart, the same darkness that had consumed his ancestor and led to the creation of the curse. "You will face yourself, Kofi," the ancient king said, his voice now mocking. "And if you fail, your bloodline will be doomed to carry this curse forever." As the vision of the ancient king faded, Kofi felt the weight of the prophecy settle over him. But just as the darkness threatened to consume him, Oba's voice filled his mind once again. "The darkness you face is not just the curse. It is the fear, the doubt, and the pain that you carry within you," Oba said gently. "To break the curse, you must first break free of your own limitations. You must embrace both the light and the dark within you." Kofi closed his eyes, feeling the weight of Oba's wisdom. "But how can I face the darkness inside me?" Kofi asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. "You have already begun to face it, Kofi," Oba replied. "By accepting the loss of your people, by embracing your humanity, you are already on the path to breaking the curse. The next step is to understand that your soul is not bound by the past. It is shaped by your choices." Kofi opened his eyes, a new clarity within him. He now understood that the curse was not just an external force. It was an internal struggle, one that he could overcome by accepting who he was, flaws and all. With the revelation of the prophecy and the understanding of the darkness within, Kofi knew the time had come to make the ultimate decision. "I must face the curse, not as an enemy, but as part of me," he said softly, his voice full of resolve. "Only then can I break free of it." The serpent's warning echoed in his mind, but this time Kofi was not afraid. He understood now that immortality was not the answer. The true power lay in accepting his humanity, his strengths, his flaws, and everything in between. I will break the curse, Kofi vowed, his voice strong. Not by fighting it, but by embracing it. I will live, and I will die. And in doing so, I will free my people. With that, Kofi turned away from the altar, his heart steady, ready to face the final test that lay ahead. Kofi knew the final battle was inevitable. With the knowledge gained from the temple, and the understanding of his true destiny, he gathered his allies. Kwan's sacrifice had not been in vain. The village rallied behind him once again, prepared to fight for their survival. As Kofi addressed the warriors, his voice rang with authority. We fight not for immortality, but for our right to live as we are, to embrace our humanity. The warriors, including some of the young villagers who had once rebelled, now stood united, ready to face Adissa and his dark forces. The time for hiding was over. The battle for the soul of their people had begun. The battlefield was chaos. Adissa's forces clashed with Kofi's warriors, the sounds of steel ringing out. Kofi fought fiercely, his sword cutting through the air with precision. He saw Adissa in the distance, his dark figure commanding his troops. The battle was not just physical, it was a test of wills. Kofi had to defeat Adissa, but more than that, he had to defeat the darkness inside himself that had been passed down through generations. As they finally faced off, Kofi raised his sword. This ends now, Adissa, Kofi said, his voice filled with finality. Adissa sneered. You cannot defeat me. You are just a slave to the curse. But Kofi's determination was unwavering. The fight was brutal, but in the end, Kofi's strength, his acceptance of both light and dark, proved to be his victory. In the midst of the battle, as Kofi defeated Adissa's forces, he realized the full depth of the prophecy. To truly break the curse, he had to make the ultimate sacrifice. His ancestors' pact had to be undone by someone who embraced both life and death. I am ready, Kofi whispered to himself, knowing what he must do. As he raised his sword to strike the final blow against Adissa, the curse surged within him, threatening to overtake him. But in that moment, Kofi made peace with his fate, offering himself to the spirits. A wave of light enveloped him, and the curse was broken, but it came at a great cost. Kofi fell to his knees, his life force draining as the village's future was secured. As Kofi's life force faded, the curse finally lifted. The village, once divided, now stood united, freed from the shackles of the curse that had plagued them for generations. The people began to rebuild, honoring Kofi's sacrifice. His mother's spirit appeared one final time, her face filled with pride. You have broken the curse, Kofi, she whispered. You have freed us all. Kofi's body lay at rest, but his legacy lived on stronger than ever. Kofi's sacrifice had set the village on a new path, one filled with hope and unity. As the villagers gathered to honor their fallen hero, they knew the future was theirs to shape. The curse was no more, but the legacy of Kofi's strength and bravery would never be forgotten. In the distance, the sun began to rise, symbolizing a new dawn for the village. The cycle is complete, Kwam said quietly, looking out over the village. Kofi has given us a future,